deciding item on the agenda today, ma'am. Ghana. Now continued concern for Nkrumah's growing hostility to the West.
You feel that he's drifting from the Commonwealth?
Not so much drifting as bolting for the door.
Into whose arms?
The Russians, ma'am. Yesterday he received Brezhnev in Accra.
Brezhnev?
The chairman of the Soviet Presidium, who flew to Ghana for talks about Nkrumah's precious dam project.
The Volta Dam?
Yes, ma'am.
But I thought Nkrumah had been talking to the Americans about that.
He had been. But Russia sees this as an opportunity to outbid the Americans, get a foothold in Africa, in an attempt to turn the whole continent red.
Well, shouldn't we ask the Americans to improve their offer?
I will certainly speak to President Kennedy as soon as he arrives in London.
Oh, good. Following his great triumph in Paris.
Indeed.
I thought de Gaulle didn't care for Mr. Kennedy.
No, it doesn't. Personally or politically.
So what turned it all around?
The First Lady, ma'am.
Why? What did she do?
Dazzled Le Tout Paris, had President de Gaulle eating out of her hand.
How on earth did she do that?
By speaking French fluently.
Yes, we can all do that.
And by debating with local philosophers and intellectuals until all anti-American sentiment simply evaporated.
I suppose she is pretty. And they are French.
She's also a formidably bright woman in her own right, having studied at the Sorbonne and the prestigious École Libre des Sciences Politiques.
The most glamorous and intelligent woman on earth.
So they say.
And now she's coming to London. So we better put our best foot forward, haven't we, Prime Minister?
Your Majesty.
Always important, I think, when choosing a gown, is to ask oneself what precisely one wants to feel when wearing it.
I just think that one doesn't want to feel second best.
Quite. Especially if one is very much the senior of the two individuals.
Now.
In terms of rank, not age. To that end, I have something quite specific in mind. Mrs. Kennedy may have dazzled in Paris, but let's not forget France is a republic. This is a monarchy. And if you got it, flaunt it, I say.
I had a look at the seating plan for dinner, and I couldn't help noticing.
Breathe in, Mum. Just a bit more.
You gave Mrs. Kennedy to Uncle Dickie.
There.
Yes, I did. At his request, he's been badgering me for weeks. As, incidentally, as your brother-in-law.
Berthold?
Yes.
The rascal.
Not to mention our own Prime Minister and the American ambassador.
Well.
All desperate to sit next to the First Lady.
I could let it out a bit, Mum.
No.
What if I'm requesting her, too?
I put you next to Theodora.
She's my sister.
Yes, whom you haven't seen in
No,
years.
she's still my sister, and this is... you know.
No, I don't know.
Her. Anyway, in terms of protocol, isn't it my right, as your husband, to sit next to the most senior female there?
It's true, at a state dinner, you could have expected to sit next to the most senior female guest. But on this occasion, Downing Street have asked us, begged us not to make it a state dinner.
Why?
So as not to put French noses out of joint.
What's it got to do with the bloody French?
Well, apparently de Gaulle will resist us joining the EEC if he thinks we're too close to the Americans. So it's a small, informal dinner.
You're fine. And then it's a free-for-all seating-wise.
Yes, I suppose it is.
In which case, I could move Dickie next to my sister and put myself next to the First Lady.
If you must.
Where? I must.
Thank you, gentlemen. Sorry, sir. And you. The President and First Lady are arriving now.
Oh. There you are. Is it possible to think you could be marginally less excited?
No.
Porchy, what on earth is going on? They've all gone mad.
Here they go.
Madam First Lady, welcome to Buckingham Palace.
Thank you.
Mr. President. Hello. Her Majesty's waiting for you in the blue drawing room. There will be a brief reception before dinner, sir.
Fantastic.
It's mass hysteria. Extraordinary behaviour. Oh, thank you.
Done.
For goodness sake.
Come on, it's like royalty.
Well, very funny.
Gosh. President first.
Her Majesty.
No curtsy.
No curtsy.
Mrs. Kennedy.
Your Grace.
Your Royal Highness.
Mrs. Kennedy.
Good evening, Your Royal Majesty.
Oh, dear. Oh, for goodness sake.
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Your Grace. Did they not get the protocol sheet?
Yes. You obviously didn't read it.
Yes, well. Shall we?
Jackie.
Where do you think she's going?
Lord knows.
Mrs. Kennedy. I believe you know our plan.
I feel like that went wrong in about 10,000 different ways.
I've seen worse, but I'm not sure when. Just drink.
Please.
Sorry, sir.
Bloody shambles.
Oh, no, I think you simply must try it. Gosh.
My heart goes out to him. But is the behind closed doors in Vienna, Khrushchev humiliated, ran rings round him, treated him like a little boy. It's no wonder the Cold War continues. It's two nations, two very different worlds. Different events, communists, and still vying for existence.
Since we're having we won't go there. No, we won't.
So, how was she?
Oh, terrific. She's divine.
She?
And frightfully clever.
Yes. What are you doing?
She wants a tour of the place.
Does she? Well, then I'll do it.
No, it's all right. She asked me.
No, it's my house, so I'll do it. Mrs. Kennedy.
You okay there? I hope my wife isn't causing too much trouble.
You do know you're the luckiest man on earth.
Yes.
Although people keep telling me the same thing.
Where are they going?
I've absolutely no idea.
Now, this is the throne room. In the early years of Queen Victoria's reign, various balls and concerts were held here, but now it's principally used for receptions, investitures, and the taking of royal wedding photographs. Shall we? Now, this is the picture gallery. This is my great-great-great-great-grandfather, George III, and he bought Buckingham House in 1761 for his wife, Queen Charlotte.
Who's this?
Ah, that's one of the Pitts, the younger. Known for something that's always rather endeared me to him. crippling shyness. Apparently, he could barely look people in the eye. And yet he became our Prime Minister.
I quite understand. I'm also a shy person by nature.
This leads to our private apartments. It's a shortcut. This is about as private as it gets in this place. It's where one feels most comfortable.
Oh, I quite understand. You have to have somewhere to escape to. I've often wondered how someone who hates attention as much as I do ended up in a goldfish bowl like the White House. But I realize there's actually a perverse logic to a cripplingly shy person ending up in this position.
Well, you'll have to explain that one to me.
Well, a shy person will seek out someone strong to protect them.
Yes, I'm with you so far.
And a strong character is often one who enjoys public life, who thrives on it. And then before you know it, the very person you've turned to in order to protect you is the very reason you are exposed. Jack's idea of heaven is a crowd. Campaigning, fundraising, speech-making, that's when he comes alive. He'd far sooner speak to 10,000 people under the glare of spotlights than be alone with me.
And what's your idea of heaven?
I like my own company. And to be alone in the countryside.
And where do you go?
A farm. Glenora, about an hour from Washington.
Maryland.
Virginia.
Oh, yes. Ah. Hello, Stuart. They're eating.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, goodness.
Hello, puppies.
What's your name?
Well, that's Sugar. And these are our puppies. Come here, come here. Whiskey and Sherry.
Hello. What?
Oh, you're very clever to be cautious.
Oh, it's really one of the great paradoxes of being in a position where I have to talk to a great many people. But deep down, I'm happiest with animals.
That makes two of us.
I always think my sister would have made, if not the better, the more natural First Lady.
Oh, mine too. A born queen. And the greatest of British queens, in her own mind, anyway. No, I liked her very much. And I've been all set to loathe her. But in the end, I was utterly charmed. It's a timely reminder.
Of what?
Oh, that people are so rarely what they seem.
Well, then I don't know what Patrick was talking about.
Patrick?
Plunkett. I saw him last night at Tartuffe.
I was at a restaurant.
It's a play, dear. A very famous French play.
Oh, I knew that.
Did you?
Yes, it's a classic tragedy.
Farce?
By Pissarro.
Molière.
Oh.
Pissarro was a painter. When was the last time you even went to the theatre? Or a gallery? Or even read a book? Oh, you're a savage.
Oh, thank you. What about Patrick?
Well, Patrick had dinner at the Radzivilles last week. Well, your new best friend, Mrs. Kennedy, was also a guest. He called me this morning to tell me some of the things he'd overheard her say at dinner.
Oh, what did she say?
You'd have to ask Patrick. Must say, it did seem a little unkind. You know how reported speech gets twisted in the retailing? I'm quite sure it was nothing. Don't worry.
General Solid! Recess! Up! Shoulder! Up! Order! Up!
Patrick,
Your Majesty.
it's so kind of you to come.
It's really not far.
Are you still just round the corner at Wellington Barracks?
I am.
And you still travelling up and down the country, recruiting for all the regiments from all the top schools?
That's me.
I gather you saw the First Lady at dinner recently.
Who?
Mrs. Kennedy. Margaret mentioned it.
Did she?
Yes. So how was that?
Pleasant enough. Uneventful. You know how it is at the Radzivilles.
No, I don't.
Well, the food's always good.
Yes, but I wasn't asking about the food. I'd like to know what was said. Patrick, we grew up together, and we've always had a very frank and a very open relationship.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, so let's not break the habit of a lifetime.
All right. What I overheard the First Lady say, and I should mention I was several places along the table, it's possible that I misheard, was that she found Buckingham Palace second-rate, dilapidated and sad, like a neglected provincial hotel, and that one came away with a sense of a tired institution without a place in the modern world.
I see. And did she have anything to say about me?
But
Patrick.
I was at the other end of the table. But the words I think I overheard were that in our head of state we had a middle-aged woman, so incurious, unintelligent, and unremarkable. That Britain's new reduced place in the world was not a surprise, but an inevitability.
Well, we must have her again soon.
Bad news, I'm afraid. Worse than bad. Regarding Nkrumah's Volta Dam project, President Kennedy's pulled out.
Why?
American involvement was conditional upon Ghana having severed all ties with the Russians. Turns out Nkrumah was in Moscow yesterday to receive the Order of Lenin, highest military honor, from Khrushchev himself.
And what's the next step?
I wish I knew. Wish I had an ace up my sleeve.
The way President Kennedy had his First Lady in Paris. Why don't you send me?
Where?
To Ghana. On what would be seen as a personal trip.
Absolutely not.
That would be out of the question, ma'am.
Why? A visit from the Crown to Ghana would be seen as a huge compliment.
Too great a compliment.
It would be singling out Ghana as a preferred nation.
In doing so, we risk alienating Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Tanganyika.
But surely by singling out Ghana, that might be just the thing to keep Nkrumah away from the Russians and in the Commonwealth.
Perhaps, but as Queen, you cannot be seen to be engaging in the dirty business of politics.
Yes, but as head of the Commonwealth, can I not be permitted just once to defend it?
Your Majesty, it would be unsafe. It would be provocative. It would be, in my view, a profound misjudgment to get on that plane.
trip is impossible to justify from any angle. It is unethical, unconstitutional, and indefensible that the Queen should be going at all.
What would you have me do? Nothing.
I certainly wouldn't have you get into a chess match with a wily operator like Nkrumah.
You're just being cynical.
And you're being naive. When you last met him, Nkrumah was just Nkrumah. Now he's the Lion of Africa, playing the Soviets off against the Americans. And you're a lamb the lion will have for lunch. The best thing you can do is stay at home and be what you're supposed to be.
A puppet.
A constitutional monarch.
A puppet.
If you like. Okay.
Well, that's the whole point. I don't like.
Sir, she's here.
Charlemagne.
Stop. Stop.
One moment, please, ma'am.
Yes.
Reporters.
Ohima, Ghana mai edi ahobrasie ama wakwaba. Your Majesty, Ghana welcomes you humbly.
Yes. We're very happy to be here.
Of course. Back. Ready.
Thank you, Your Majesty.
Thank you.
Well, you've given him the photo he wanted. That'll be on the front page of every African newspaper, making every other African leader choke with jealousy.
Yes, well, as long as it does the trick.
Dean here. Put him through.
I have a secure line to Ghana.
Yes, sir.
But I thought he had agreed to suspend all contact with the Soviets.
Apparently not.
Ready for you, sir. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you. Out.
Hello?
Your Majesty.
Prime Minister.
I've just received confirmation that a team of international engineers has arrived in Ghana to begin work on Nkrumah's dam.
Well, I'd say that's good news, isn't it? We encourage the Americans to go back to Nkrumah.
Soviet engineers, ma'am. It appears Nkrumah has been playing us all off against one another.
What?
Leading us a merry dance. I'm afraid you've been used, ma'am. Just as we'd feared.
Elizabeth, what's happened? Evening, sir. Martin.
I wouldn't if I were you.
Sir?
She's asked to be alone. She says she's thinking. What's going on? What are you doing? Elizabeth?
Yes, this is Colonel Charteris.
We have Martin Charteris on the telephone. A situation is developing in Ghana. Hello?
I think we both understand the significance of this moment.
Yes. But do we understand the terms?
They appear to be in some kind of negotiation.
What kind of negotiation?
Get her out of there.
Your Majesty.
Oh, Lord.
What's going on?
He's taken her hand.
With an African.
What?
Was this agreed?
Was this agreed?
This was definitely not agreed.
What are they doing?
What are they doing?
Hard to say. I believe it's the foxtrot.
The foxtrot, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, the man I am proud to call the 35th President of the United States, but even more proud to call my brother, John F. Kennedy.
Thank you, Bobby. What is it to be an American today? Prosperous, powerful, privileged? Certainly. And yet, it is also troubling. I look around me and find our people divided as never before. Indeed, as at no time since our Civil War. There has been a change, a slippage in our moral and our intellectual strength. Blight has descended on our regulatory agencies, and a dry rot, beginning in Washington, is seeping into every corner of America. Too many of us have lost our way, our will, and our sense of historic purpose. It is time for a renewal, a new generation of leadership, healing leadership, but we cannot do it alone. And so I am asking each of you to be pioneers in this renewal, in this healing, in the reclaiming of great American values, freedom, tolerance, and equality of opportunity. Then we can claim our position and responsibilities as leaders of a truly free world. God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America. evening worthwhile.
Ladies, if you'd like to step over here.
When the British royal family visits a former colony, it doesn't normally make news in the U.S. But when Queen Elizabeth dances with a former
What's
subject,
up, honey?
a white monarch with an African leader, the world pays attention. And so too did Ghanaian leader President Nkrumah himself. Awed by the gesture, Nkrumah...
I'm going to Glenora with the kids in the morning.
It's not the weekend yet.
It's Wednesday. It's a weekend enough for me.
Don't be like that.
Don't you take away my dignity and then tell me how to be.
I just wanted to thank you, that's all. For the second time in recent weeks, you've been instrumental in changing a significant matter of foreign policy. And an African state that was fast running into the arms of the communists has been turned around and kept in the West.
Oh, what does that have to do with me?
Dreary queen thick ankles, her majestic dullness, the incurious crown, apparently just some of the things you said about her at a dinner in London, which then got back to Queen Elizabeth, and it seems spurred her on. Without those insults, she wouldn't have defied a cabinet, risked her reputation, and gone to Ghana against all advice to bring President Nkrumah back on side, but she did. Pulled off some incredible stunt with a dance, and it's all thanks to you.
They're ready for you.
Relax. It's not like you're running to her in Glenora.
Not Glenora, no. But I am due back in London on my way back from India and Pakistan.
Then my advice would be don't go to Buckingham Palace. Sorry, the Provincial Hotel.
It was not so easy. Her sister set up a lunch last time we were in town.
Oh? Well, that should be fun. Catfight. I look forward to a full report. Come on, Bobby.
Your Majesty, some more international reactions to the Ghana trip.
Positive or negative?
Overwhelmingly positive, ma'am.
Well, just a quick look then.
So, the New York Times calls it shrewd strategic maneuvering, an example of impeccable political brinkmanship. The Australian papers are very impressed with your commitment to the Commonwealth, and the Illustrated London News call it an outstanding personal success.
Flirting doesn't suit you. The Ghanaian press are calling you a socialist.
Goodness.
One more thing. First Lady, Mrs. Kennedy.
What about her?
Her office has written requesting private audience with Your Majesty prior to lunch on the 28th of March.
Whatever for?
They didn't say.
Where's the lunch?
Buckingham Palace, ma'am.
Well, let's make the audience Windsor Castle. Sometimes only a fortress will do.
Windsor Castle.
This way, Mrs. Kennedy.
Mrs. Kennedy, this way, please.
Mrs. Kennedy, Your Majesty.
Your Majesty. Thank you for seeing me.
Mrs. Kennedy. Do sit down.
Thank you.
Shall we have tea?
I asked to speak to you in private ahead of our lunch on Friday, because I owe you an apology.
Whatever for?
I think we both know the answer to that question.
Thank you.
At a social occasion, shortly after our last visit, I made some comments. Some foolish comments, which I believe got back to you.
There really is no need for this. Reports that you'd said certain things did get back to me. And I'll confess to being momentarily surprised, since they in no way reflected what I understood to be the spirit of our meeting. But in this job, I've learned, as I'm sure you have too, not to take things too seriously. People say things for all sorts of reasons, which get misquoted or misunderstood, and before you know it, those words have turned into something quite different, and everyone's upset or up in arms. I'm quite sure that you meant no harm nor disrespect. After all, why would you? We barely know one another.
Still, it was inexcusable, so I can't offer an excuse, but if you'll allow me, I'd like to offer an explanation.
Yes, of course.
Last time we were in London, Jack and I probably seemed, at least from the outside, to be riding on a high.
Yes, I should say so. The most celebrated, most famous couple in the world.
Well, the truth is that I was still suffering from postnatal problems after the birth of our son, and Jack had his own health issues. To say we were strained would be an understatement. So when we got to Paris, well, I don't mind telling you, I took some pleasure in shining there. And then at the Elysee Palace.
I am the man who accompanied Jacqueline Kennedy to Paris. I enjoyed it.
Jack didn't appreciate being upstaged, behind closed doors.
I can imagine.
There were other factors, too. Our doctor, Dr. Jacobson, routinely administers us his cocktails before major trips. Vitamins, but other substances, too. To help pep us up or calm us down. On the occasion of that dinner, he had given me something. A little booster. I told him I needed cheering up. But I guess it loosened my tongue. And then I heard some of these terrible things got back to you. I can't tell you how much distress it's caused me. The idea that I might have upset someone I admire so much.
That's very kind of you to say.
It's true. The way you do your job, the way you cope with the pressure, the personal sacrifices you've made, not to mention your composure and dignity. As a woman, it's so inspiring. And what you just did in Ghana was just extraordinary.
What I should have said was that I didn't do very much in Ghana. I got on a plane and I went. The only reason I went was because I felt utterly useless in comparison to you. And I was trying to compete. And if anything, I owe you a huge debt of gratitude. But I didn't. I just sat there. And I let her say her piece.
And savoured your victory?
Yes.
And what do you want from me now? Ticking off?
Well, don't you think I'm deserving of one?
No.
But she was so broken and fragile and lost.
You did exactly the right thing. She insulted you, all of us, and you're not a saint.
No.
We know that already. There's ice in those veins when there needs to be.
Yes.
Well, 3 cheers to that.
Man,
What is it?
you're needed back at the house.
Right.
What's going on?
I don't know, lad. Something's happened.
There was absolute pandemonium around the scene. People screamed and lay down on the ground as shots were heard. Reporters saw President Kennedy lying flat on his face on the seat of his car. Men and women were screaming. He saw blood on the president's head. This is all we have here in Washington at this moment, and for the moment I return you to Radio Newsreel in London.
Hello, London. I've just heard from Dallas that the president is still alive, but in critical condition. He was apparently shot in the head, and the governor of Texas, Governor Connolly, was shot in the chest.
Mrs. Kennedy was weeping, trying to hold up her husband's head when the reporters reached the car as it drives toward the hospital. Vice President Lyndon Johnson was in the car behind the president.
Blood transfusions are being given to President Kennedy. However, one of the 2 priests called into the room has administered the last sacrament of the church to President Kennedy. Mrs. Kennedy and Mrs. Connolly are stunned, but they are at the bedside of their husbands.
He's dead.
Didn't you say how unhappy she was in the marriage?
Bearing his body. Mrs. Kennedy
Yes.
accompanied the fallen president. Her clothes still
That's the thing about unhappiness.
unthinkable and
All it takes is for something worse to come along. And you realize it was actually happiness after all.
conveyed into the hospital in plain sight of thousands of waiting mourners, as disbelieving and shaken tonight as our entire...
She's still wearing the same clothes.
Today, last respect...
Couldn't they have found her something else?
As the president's casket was
It's covered in our husband's blood.
Relatives and loved ones joined the grieving Mrs. Kennedy for a private
No, I think it's deliberate.
room before the body was moved to the rotunda of the Capitol. The last day in the life of the first Catholic president of the United States. Lyndon Johnson, sworn in on Air Force One less than 100 minutes after the official death of President Kennedy.
Michael, I'd like everyone in the royal household to observe a full week of court mourning. And I would like the bell rung at Westminster Abbey.
Ma'am, custom dictates that the bell only be rung.
When a member of the royal family dies. I know. But I would like it to be rung every minute for an hour. From 11 o'clock until midday.
Yes, ma'am.
Join President Johnson in his prayer for God's help. May we all find some light and hope in the darkness of the days that lie ahead.